back, guys. Today we're going to get to work on this fretboard. So there are several problems with the fretboard. One being that the inlays are very dirty. And by dirty I mean like you can't just clean them off easily. There's something kind of stuck on the top of them. They're not super smooth. They're actually recessed a little bit in there. They're obviously supposed to be completely even, so when you do your inlays, if you're putting them in, I think the idea is you make them just a little bit thicker than the area that you've cut in there, and when you put them in, you shave the top off of them so that they're flush with the top of the fretboard. That's not the case here. These inlays are just a bit too thin and they're recessed. So there are a few different potential ways of dealing with that, our first problem, and we're quickly going to cover those. So I'm going to bring the camera in close to my workbench here so you can see what I'm doing, and we're going to take a look at how you can possibly deal with this problem. So as we had mentioned there's more than one way to deal with this. The fact that they're recessed is a bit of an issue, but really when playing it's not going to be a big issue. One of the ways of dealing with this is to literally go in and sand them. Now, I'm not doing anything to protect my frets here, and the reason for that is that the frets obviously need quite a bit of work too, so I'm going to be going in and polishing those up after. So what I've got here is just a piece of 180 grit paper, and as I said, one of the options, unfortunately you can't really go with the grain here, it's not really feasible, but one of the options is to go across the grain and literally sand this entire area in an effort to get it all smoother. And just from a little bit of sanding, I can already start to feel it becoming more even. One of the issues with this idea is that it does kind of take its toll on the edges of the frets, so you definitely have to go through and polish them afterward if you're going to do this. And that's my heater keeping it nice and warm in here so I can spray lacquer after. Okay, so that's one way of going about it. Now, I didn't show you those specifically before, and I should have, I apologize, but they're looking considerably cleaner than this one, for example. So they're already doing a bit better, and I'll need to polish those after, but now I can go in and just kind of clean this area off. And things are already looking nicer than they were before. It needs a little bit more work. I guess might be a bit difficult to see in there. Oh yeah, you can see some of the, where am I going? Some of the imperfections in there. And this one, and right kind of in the middle there. So that's one option. Another option, let's take a new dirty one here. If we don't want to worry too much about flattening it all out, man, that heater just keeps getting louder, is to use Scotch-Brite, because it'll kind of get in there and clean out the inside a little bit quicker. So this isn't going to even out the level as much, but it's kind of just an easy way to get in and clean some of this crap out without affecting the wood as much. Again, if you're not doing anything to protect the frets, they will need to be polished after this. So that again cleaned things up a little bit. It's not perfect, but it is one way of doing it. Let's move on to this one, which is quite dirty. So another option, and this is one you got to be careful with, is to use some lacquer thinner or something like that to clean it, and just a Q-tip. Now if you're going to do this, what you need to do is make sure that you condition your fretboard after using some kind of oil or a fretboard restorer or something like that. So lemon oil is a popular choice. Mineral oil would work. I know the people at Crimson Guitars make a fretboard conditioner that seems to work quite well. Dunlop, they've got their Jim Dunlop or whatever, I think he makes mineral oil, or lemon oil that works quite well. So for this, you can just go in and just scrub the stuff off of there, kind of clean the whole area. And this, of course, does nothing to level it out. All this does is take some of that staining off of there. So it makes it look better, but it doesn't change how it feels. Sorry, I'm just trying to dry the lacquer thinner off of there. I don't want that to sit on there and dry the wood out too much. So those are all good options. And now it's time to cover yet another one, and the one that I probably intend to use here. So we noticed, or I'm sure you noticed, that I was unable to sand with the grain before, which isn't ideal. And I was unable to go with the grain with this, also not ideal. The lacquer thinner dries out the fretboard and doesn't solve our leveling problem. And any of those sanding options affect the frets. So even though I'm going to do the frets, I have another option that doesn't involve messing with them, and that is using a razor blade. Now this is kind of difficult. You have to be very careful. You don't want, because you can go with the grain on this. You need to be very careful that you're doing it evenly all the way across so that you're not messing with the radius of your fretboard. Okay, and you also need to be very careful because you're scraping the fretboard down until it's even with the inlay, but the inlay is a different density than the fretboard. So make sure you're paying attention to what it's doing when you're scraping. You can go straight from one fret to the other. You don't have to worry about hurting them at all because you're not going over top of them. And that's it. You just go in, scrape with the grain, change back and forth for direction, just so that you don't have to replace your razor blade as often because the burr on the bottom will flip back and forth. And just keep moving back and forth over the fret until these start to clean up. And then if you want to, you can go in and clean off any excess once it feels nice and smooth, which this one does now. It still looks a bit dirty, so I can just go in with my lacquer thinner and clean off the little bit of brown that's left on there. And now I've solved the leveling problem and the aesthetic problem. So that's how we solved that problem. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting to have to scrape the fretboard when I got this kit, but you know, these things happen sometimes. So I feel that the razor blade method is the quickest and the most effective for solving all the problems in there without creating new ones. So if I had to recommend one, that would be it. But again, make sure you're careful, particularly when you're using something like a razor blade. It's easy to gouge the neck if you try and scrape with the blade going first. So don't do that, drag it. And also, they're really sharp and you can cut yourself, so don't do that either. We're gonna call that a wrap for today. And when we come back next time, we'll get to work on the frets themselves. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up so it'll be easier for other people to find, and subscribe to stay up to date with all the cool projects I got coming out. Also, a big shout out to Sovereign King, who does the vast majority of the music for my channel, way better on guitar than I am. And to Troy from Noise Guitar Mods, I'll put the link in the description. The man is a great guitar tech, and he's taught me most of what I know about how the internals of these things work. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. See you next time.